The day my boss fired me, he thought he had destroyed my life. He smiled because he believed I had nothing left. But he made one huge mistake. He underestimated the woman he had just pushed away. Because 6 months later, I walked back into that company, not as an employee, but as someone who knew the truth. That could bring everything he built crashing down. My name is Emily. For 12 years, I gave everything I had to that company. I didn't see it as just a job. I saw it as my dream. I was always the first person to arrive at the office, and usually the last one to leave. Whenever there was a difficult project, everyone knew who to call. Emily will handle it. Single quotes. And I always did. I solved problems, saved deadlines, and helped the company grow. But I never imagined that one day, the same people I worked so hard for would turn their backs on me. It was a Monday morning. I walked into the office like any other day. But something felt different. People were looking at me strangely. My coworker Sarah looked worried, but she quickly looked away. Then my phone rang. It was a message from my boss, Michael. Come to my office. I walked in, expecting another meeting. But instead, I saw a file sitting on his desk. I looked at him and asked, "What is this?" He looked at me calmly and said, "Emily, today is your last day here." For a moment, I couldn't even speak. I thought I had misunderstood him. I said, "After 12 years? After everything I've done for this company?" Michael leaned back in his chair and said, "The company doesn't need you anymore." Those words hurt more than I expected. Not because I lost my job, but because I realized something. The place where I had given my best years could erase me in just a few minutes. I packed my things, and I walked out of that office. But as I left the building, one thing kept bothering me. Michael wasn't angry. He wasn't worried. He was too calm, like he already knew I couldn't do anything. That night, I opened my old work files, and that's when I found something strange. Numbers that didn't match, payments that didn't make sense, and documents that had only one person's approval, Michael's signature. At that moment, I realized maybe losing my job wasn't the end of my story. Maybe it was the beginning. For the next few days, I stayed quiet. I didn't tell anyone what I had discovered. I knew one thing. If I wanted justice, I couldn't act with anger. I needed proof, real proof. So I started looking deeper. I checked old reports, financial records, and company documents. The more I searched, the more questions I found. Millions of dollars had disappeared through hidden transactions. And every trail was leading back to one person, Michael, the man who had thrown me out like I meant nothing. But I still didn't understand one thing. Why would he risk everything for money? While I was searching for answers, I also had to rebuild my own life. Starting over was not easy. There were days when I questioned myself. Days when I wondered, maybe Michael was right. Maybe I was not good enough. But then I remembered something. I didn't lose my ability. I only lost a position. And nobody could take away my experience, my knowledge, or my determination. So I made a decision. I would stop fighting for a place where I wasn't valued. And I would create a place of my own. I started a small consulting business from my home. At first, nobody knew my name. Nobody believed I could succeed. But slowly, things started changing. One client became 5. 5 became 20. And the small business that everyone thought would fail started becoming something much bigger. People who once ignored me started asking how I did it. But I never forgot why I started. Because this was never only about success. It was about proving that someone can fall and still rise stronger than before. 6 months later, my new company was growing faster than I ever imagined. But there was still one thing unfinished. Michael was still hiding the truth. And I knew, as long as he continued pretending to be innocent, other people could get hurt. So I made a decision. I arranged a business meeting, and I invited the one person who thought he had already defeated me, Michael. When Michael walked into the meeting room, he looked confident. He smiled and said, "Emily, I heard your new business is doing well." I looked at him and smiled back. "Yes, Michael." It is ... single quotes ... He thought I invited him to celebrate my success. But he was wrong. I placed a folder on the table. His smile slowly disappeared. Inside that folder were the documents, records and evidence I had collected for months. The room became through the papers and whispered, "For the first time, where did you get these?" I looked at him and said, "The same place where you thought nobody would ever look." Everyone in that room finally saw the truth. The person who had been pretending to be powerful was the one who had been hiding the biggest secret. Later that day, the evidence was handed over to the authorities. Michael's perfect image was gone. The company he tried to protect was the same company that exposed him. People often ask me, "Didn't you want revenge after everything he did to you?" The truth is, at the beginning I did. I wanted him to feel the pain I felt. But then I realized something. The best revenge is not watching someone fall. The best revenge is building a life they never thought you could have. And maybe the biggest mistake Michael made wasn't firing me that Monday. Maybe his biggest mistake was believing that losing my job meant losing my power. Because sometimes the person you try to destroy becomes the person you can never defeat.